All right, we are live. Hello, everybody. Welcome. My name is Buck Woody. I am working on the data science team, the machine learning and data science team here at Microsoft. I live in Tampa, Florida, but my group is here. Hey, guys, come on in. No worries. You're not late. We're not going to point you out or anything. Come right on in. Have a seat. I would never do that. I would not do that because I'd be rude. As I was mentioning before the recording started, you do want to pull these slides down off of the site where you logged in at originally to come here. Definitely take a look at those and look in the notes view for that. If you do have a question, please raise your hand anytime and I will repeat the question and then tell it back. If you're a speaker, raise your hand. Okay. Some of you are now not raising your hand that raised it earlier. If you're a speaker, raise your hand. Good. Always repeat the question. Also make your fonts big enough, and the way you do that is you create your presentation, take 10 steps back from your laptop, look at the slide deck. If you can't read it, your audience can't read it. All right. Hi guys, come on in. Awesome. We were shy of people with beards, so you're here perfectly on time. I was starting to feel a little lonely, so that's good. Okay, not, present company excluded, right? Okay. All right, I'm on the machine learning and data science team here at Microsoft, and I've chosen the title for this particular talk, which is 50 minutes long, the data inequality, the fates of companies with untapped data. Weird title, right? Isn't that a weird title? Do you think it's a weird title? Doesn't it sound some strange mix between technical and marketing? Doesn't it sound like that? Well, I actually stole it from another study. And what you're looking at on the screen right now is a map of New Guinea. New Guinea is one of the Polynesian islands, which becomes very interesting to us as we begin to think about our topic today, because the Papua, or actually all the Polynesian islands, become an interesting microcosm, a group of people left and in a relatively short period of historical time settled the islands one at a time and then separated from each other. But they started with a similar language and culture. So they're actually interesting to study because you can see the progression of language and concepts and social structures in a short period of time. It's harder to study that in other cultures. Not only that, the Polynesian islands were actually settled fairly recently. New Zealand, for instance, isn't that old as a culture. And New Zealand itself split into two parts, and it was just very interesting. You're wondering at this point what this has got to do with technology or data. Stick with me, we'll get there. So we're looking at a place called New Guinea, and there's a gentleman who worked in New Guinea. His name is Dr. Jared Diamond, and he's a biologist, and he studies birds. He loves birds, and he wrote a book here called Guns, Germs and Steel. It's quite a thick tome, but it's fascinating reading. And it's a survey of history and development of civilizations. Come around here, guys. You're fine. Right over here. No, it's okay. Just step in front. It's no big deal. It's a small room. You have to go out of this room to change your mind. It's really small. So Jared Diamond wrote this book because he worked with the people of Papua New Guinea for a great deal of time, found them very intelligent and very adaptable, but they are subsistence farmers, meaning they're still pretty much hunter-gatherers. And if Europeans had not given them steel products fairly recently, they are still using stone tools and have domesticated only one or two small animals that they use as food and to transport with them. Fascinating. In this day and age, you've got people living like they were thousands of years ago. And as he worked with these people to study the birds, he began to talk to them about their culture, and he became fascinated by one question. And you can see the title of his book is The Fates of Human Societies, which echoes the title I've given this particular session. And there's going to be some correlations we can draw there, not statistical correlations, just conceptual correlations. Although we'll talk about statistics too. And Dr. Diamond found that one of the guys came up to him one day that was his friend and said this, asked this question of him. He said, "Why do you have so much cargo and we don't?" Cargo is the word that the people in New Guinea use to describe stuff, technology. Helicopters would land. You can imagine what this looks like to them. They understand these things. They're not primitive, but they're not advanced technologically. And they were asking him, why are you technologically advanced and we're not? Well, he's a scientist, and like most of us, he began to question what was the reason. And so he took a look at various places around the globe. And as he went into these places around the globe, he began to map out where the money was. And money usually indicates technology. You need some money to make technology and vice versa. And as he began to look at this, he wondered what these things had in common. Why do some places have a lot of cargo and some places don't? So he took a few of the reasons and began to work backwards, some root cause analysis, if you will. The first thing could be, well, these people are not as advanced as we are. That could be something you could say. You could take a racial approach and say these people are different than we are. So he gave them some tests on adaptability and learning something new. Like he would give you and I the same test he would give them, and it was not based on something either of us had seen before. And they were able to pass the test just as quickly as a European or anyone else. So that wasn't it. It wasn't that they were, air quotes here, inferior. They weren't. So he thought, clearly it's got to be something to do with history. So he looked through the history of battles and war and pressures and so on, and that didn't work either. And he pulled back even further, trying to find out why some societies do well and other societies don't do as well. What is it? When you start thinking about it, it feels obvious, doesn't it? It's luck, it's happenstance, it's the way people developed. But he goes through all this in his multi-hundred-page book and talks about why those things aren't necessarily true. And as he went through these, he made a fairly interesting discovery. The difference between societies that tend to create a lot of technology and have more cargo and those that don't was an interesting discovery that goes back almost into prehistory. It's just as history started. In fact, they're conflated. The reason why we have history is things were written down. What were the first things that were written down, by the way? Say again? Some drawings. Tables of accounts is what the comment was in the back. And that's absolutely correct. We created writing for tax records. The earliest cuneiform and Sumerian letters that we have, which our alphabet, by the way, is still based off of, the writing that was developed was meant to track the money that you spent on taxes and who owed money. It's kind of ironic. And what he found was this. The people that developed that writing system had done something very interesting. They were a place in the Fertile Crescent that had found cereal grains. They found wheat there. In China, it was rice, and in other places. And he began to map out these hot spots. And it turns out your base society, notice the Fertile Crescent is right next to the Caucasus Mountains and Asia. And you can see that the civilizations that began to develop technologies didn't develop them in England or France or Russia or Germany. They came through the Fertile Crescent, through the Caucasus Mountains, where we get the name Caucasian, and came through that area and down into sub-Saharan Africa in some places. And so what happens is, the interesting thing about cereal grains is they allow you to grow more than you can eat. Sounds like a very American thing to do. But you grow more than you can eat. Now you have a group of people who don't have to work. And what do these groups of people do? They form an administration. They form a society. To have a society and administration, we need taxes. We need money for the common good, and somebody's got to administer that. And so they created a bureaucratic class. Now, for a bureaucratic class to be able to protect its people, and more importantly, to get money from them, you need something else. You need a military. And if a military is around, what does a military need? First and foremost, technology. Not even bodies, you need technology. Every civilization that has advanced their technology in war has advanced their civilization. So tracing this all the way back, the answer within Guns, Germs and Steel, by the way, a fascinating book, highly recommend you read it. If you're not a reader, the National Geographic Channel made a 4-part series on the book. Highly recommended reading. So when you take a look at this, when you go all the way back, what he found was it was cereal grains that made the difference Now, by the way, there's some controversy around his ideas, but I'm using this as an illustration to ask the following question. Around the world, there are a lot of companies that make a lot of money. And there are a lot of other companies that don't make as much money. And when you think about that, you have to ask yourself the question, why? What makes the inequality among companies better than another? What do we think are some factors that make one company better than another? Technology is certainly one. Leadership can be one. Being in the right area geopolitically and geographically could be a factor, certainly. Say that again for me. Market position and the awareness of the product at the right time. Microsoft had a smartphone a long time ago, but it was early, wasn't marketed well. The technology had not caught up with it. Apple came out with a different one that was widely accepted based on the time, technology, and implementation. So we see these things, but how did they do that? That's not a cause, that's an effect. A smartphone coming out at a certain company is not a cause for that company's rise. It's an effect of that company. And what is that root cause? What is the cereal grain for a company that uses or makes a good product over one that just doesn't do well? People, certainly another one. Vision, intelligence, all these things are definitely factors. But I'm going to give you one that might blow your mind. It's data. It's data. And it's how you, in this room, each one of you, and those of you listening on the recording and the streaming, it's how you use data. And I'm going to go even a step further. So I work on the machine learning team and data science team. And the beginning of any data science project should be the same as any beginning of any data-oriented product. But the number one thing that a data scientist will tell you is that your algorithm cannot outrun your data. If you have bad data to begin with, the best algorithm in the world cannot fix that. If you don't have enough data, there's no way I can fix that with the right algorithm. If you're using the wrong units, miles versus kilometers, if you're comparing, pun here, apples to oranges, if you're comparing those things, you can't outrun bad data. So what we see in companies that do well, how did they get the market position? How did they know to make a smartphone? It's already been done. We shouldn't do that. It's already been done. No, hadn't been done this way. How do you know what someone's going to want? It's through data. Data are your cereal grains. Let me give you some facts, and I've got a link up here. When you download the deck, you're not meant to see the top because I'm big on fonts being big enough to understand. But I'm going to give you some facts here that will blow your mind. Take a look at this. 90% of all the data we have right now, let me make sure you understand this. 90% of the data that we have right now, including all of the cuneiform, all of the records from the Spanish ships that sailed, all of the writing from Shakespeare. By the way, Shakespeare's one of his original folios is on display right now at the Seattle Library. If you get a chance, go check that out. It's a once-in-a-lifetime thing. And that's actually happening this week. Has been generated over the last 2 years. That is mind-numbing to me, that kind of proportion of data. Imagine the graph that looks like. Recorded history, essentially 5,000 BC-ish. Recorded history. Up to now, you've got data like this, and then suddenly 90% of it shows up now. You would almost discount all of the data prior. It's that much data. By the year 2020, 1.7 megabytes of new information will be created every second for every human on the planet. Do you see this? That is stunning. That is absolutely stunning. Do you know what your data profile is right now? How many of you have like a Fitbit or a fitness tracker on as we speak? And most of you have a phone that does it, right? You're carrying your phone around and it's tracking. Do you know how much data you're sending on your phone when you're doing nothing on your phone? Have you ever tracked that? It's immense. If you have apps running in the background, There's a large part of that that's being cached and sent out when you're doing nothing. You personally are generating a ton of data. And by the way, on certain sites, Facebook, Twitter, and so on, if you're not paying for it, you're not a customer. You're a product. Just so you're clear, you are the product. You are part of this data exhaust. For a typical Fortune 1000, a 10% increase in data accessibility gives you $65 million in additional net income. That's average. It's not every company, blah, blah, blah. You can look up the source data that I took this from. That's an interesting number, is it not? It's a fairly interesting number, I think. This is the one that blew me away, so I colored it in red and I made the font bigger. At the moment, less than 1% of all data is ever analyzed and used. Most of us know that a lot of data is analyzed that is never used. Cue the music to, what is it, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom when they're pushing the Ark of the Covenant into the government building, okay? Cue that music. And here's what we see. Is this surprising to anyone? Or did you already know this? Okay, interesting stuff. How many of you can identify with some of these statements? My users spend more time looking for data than they do looking at it. How many of you have this problem yourself? Because I do. In the data science world, we have this all the time. Data is sitting in multiple sources, but I don't have any idea which data is where. Now, you probably know where your main ones are, probably, maybe, but not really. You have a lot of different data ecosystems. You've got SAP over here, you've got SQL Server over there, you've got SharePoint here, you've got email there, you've got spreadsheets under Diane's desk that only Diane knows about. Everyone's really using it. When Diane goes on vacation, the company comes to a halt because no one can find the latest report figures. Where do we get the report figures? Diane always gives them to me. Where does Diane get them? And you find out they're on her computer that's turned off underneath her desk, right? That never happens to anybody? No? I went into one company that had get ready for this, 5,000 operational, currently used Microsoft Access databases. Don't laugh. Your whole company runs on the world's biggest database, and that's Excel, and you know it. All right. Need to use data in different tools, but I have no way to find the data and access it across them. Or this is the one I face all the time. How many of you have reproduced a data discovery or data that's already there? You already have it. You find out later that's already there. You want to put a wrench in a manufacturing firm's day? Just walk in to do a business intelligence project, which I've done before, and ask them, what do you mean by the word inventory? And then just back out of the room and come back in 6 weeks. They'll still be discussing it. You agree with that statement? Anybody work in manufacturing in here? Anybody got, am I right? Everybody's got a different definition of the word inventory. Inventory on the shelf, inventory on hand, inventories to be shipped, inventory prepped, inventory at vendor, right? So we look at the National Health Service. Huge volumes of data. You've got visits to emergency rooms, school attendance logs, retail drug sales, all right? This week I was walking on 156th Avenue over on campus at Microsoft. Not on campus, it's actually a public road. My foot caught the edge of a pothole and I'm on a cane, as you can see, because I fell down and it was very comical. Did this whole football thing on the ground. So I went to our clinic that we have there. We got a clinic and I went to the clinic and they did an x-ray, but I generated an immense amount of data just in that one fall, but it's not connected to anything else. So they were having these problems. And they also needed to do analysis that's orthogonal data. We're going to take a look at some orthogonal data right now. And here's what they said. If you knew where to look. How many of you can say that you think you'd be more efficient if you knew where to look? And even better, what if everybody in your company could be more efficient by knowing where to look? Okay, good. And I've got the link to the thing there. You need to create a data catalog. You need a list of where all your data is, what it means. It needs to be curated. It needs to be annotated. It is your cereal grain. How many of you have tried this before? Raise your hand if you've tried to create one of these before. How'd that work out for you? Because, say again, it's a work in progress. Met with resistance, right? We have all these problems around a master data management system. Gosh, these have been around. I've been in technology for over 30 years. I'm very old. And I've seen these things. Day one, we started with master data management. We started with islands of data with COBOL flat files. By the way, the cool kids think they invented NoSQL. It's just COBOL flat files. But give them something. My gosh, they got nothing. So your data catalog, you need to create one, but it has some inherent problems. You have some inherent problems in your creating a master data management system. You mentioned one, that you met with resistance. Why did you meet with resistance?
Those people who held on to that information
Yep.
were reluctant to give it up.
Okay, so some people were gatekeepers around data. That's a good one. You said yours is a work in progress. Why? It keeps changing. So it keeps changing. There was a hand in the back.
My experience is leadership has no clue oftentimes.
Yeah.
We start talking about master data services,
Yep.
data management architecture.
They got no clue. Your comment was that the management itself, you get no management buy-in because they're like, you want us to put a big system, start putting things in there. This is going to take yet more time. What do we get out of it again? Nothing, right? Somebody else had their hand up. Yes, sir. Agreeing on a term. Come up with a term, right? There's another one that I found in the projects that I did, and that was I would set up a master data management system in this cool, shiny project, but you had to have a login to that, and you got to use that, and it only tracks data that's from that kind of system or system that it knows about, right? And only I can make changes to it. So when the data change comes and someone says, I need you to change that because the data evolved, I'm like, send me an email. I'll look at it next week, right? So how do you solve that? You solve it in a very interesting way, and I'm a big OneNote fan at Microsoft. I like Excel. I use that a lot. I use Outlook tasks a great deal. I use that a lot. I use a few of other of our products that I really like. I like my Surface, all that. I have some of our products I really, really like and would use them whether I worked here or not. This one is one of the ones that I'm most excited about, and it's so weird, it's so mundane, it's so simple that I shouldn't be excited about it, but I am. And I'm not in marketing, by the way. I'm on the data science team, so I'm not in sales. It's called Azure Data Catalog. It's in preview right now. It's coming out, I'm allowed to say soon. That means soon as in not years. It's very mature, and you're going to see it today. And here's what Azure Data Catalog does. It lets you find and use data. It does not store data. You don't put data in Azure Data Catalog. You put metadata in Azure Data Catalog. And here's what's going to blow your mind. You're going to let anybody put metadata in Azure Data Catalog. Anybody. Anybody in your company. No. Oh my gosh, what about security? What about security? Oh my gosh, what about security? You're going to let anybody in your company that has a login to your company put in data into Azure Data Catalog. And you're going to let them tag it with whatever tag they want. They could call it anything they like. They can call it inventory. They can call it all-hand inventory. They can call it shipping inventory. They can call it whatever they want. Everybody. Sounds like anarchy, doesn't it? When they first gave me the pitch for the product about a year ago and were explaining what it is, I'm like, how is this going to work? This is insanity, but it works. Now, I teach a class, a 2-day course in Cortana Analytics. And as the first thing you do as part of a data science project is you identify your data sources. We don't do ETL, extract, transform, and load. We do ELT, extract, load, and then each tool will transform it based on what it needs, which means the data needs to be kept very pure, close to its source to begin with. But you still need to identify it. In BI, our challenge is always to grab all the data and put it where the BI system can get to it. You're not going to do that. You're going to leave it right where it's at. I don't care if it's in SAP. I don't care if it's in Excel. Doesn't matter if it's in SQL Server, Oracle, Teradata, access, Lord help us all, or on the web. But you're going to put the definitions of those things, because what am I really after at the end of the day? I need to know where the data is and how I access it. That's it. That's all I want to know. So you're going to open this up to the world, and you're going to do it in the following ways. You're going to allow certain people to register data sources. You can allow whoever you want, but you'll allow certain people to register data sources. That's number one. You're going to let anybody you want tag and describe data. And the more, the merrier. And you will find Diane's spreadsheet underneath her desk when you do this. And I will tell you why. Who do you go to when you need to turn in your expense report? What's his or her name? Do you have a name?
Yeah.
Sasha. I go to Sasha. Why do I go to Sasha? She really knows that stuff, right? Anybody else got a Sasha at your work? I do. Got a lady at our work just knows. If I want to know something, like, she's not in charge of much, but what she is in charge of, she knows better than anybody on the planet. So I care who knows it. And if you think about it for a quick minute, if the Wall Street Journal tells you that the GDP is a certain number, and your 5-year-old son tells you that the GDP is a different number, who you gonna believe? We often care about who told me this more than we care about what they're telling me. Anybody see Ice Age 2? The movie. How many of you got kids? Raise your hand if you got kids. That's PII, don't do that. I'm kidding. I'm kidding, that was a joke. I don't remember most of you. Remember some of you though, and I've written some things down. You saw Ice Age 2, right? What is the statement? Always listen to Buck. All right. It's a character. If you haven't seen the movie, go see it. All right, tag and describe data, everybody does it. Then what you do is you make it easy to find the context of why that data matters. Why does that spreadsheet matter? And you provide a path to connect to the data. All I'm going to do is tell you the ODB string ODBC string you would use, or go see Diane, or here's an email address you call, or here's a website you go to. That's all I'm going to do. I'm not putting names and passwords. You don't connect to it from here. Sounds too good to be true, right? I mean, this sounds weird, right? I'm going to show you in a minute, and we'll take a look. Just be aware that Azure Data Catalog does not store data, just what it is and how to get to it, asterisk. The reason I say that is, as you'll see in a few moments, some of the things you can connect to, you can tell it, bring me in a sample of the data so people could look at it. If you check that button, that sample, it's usually 5 or 10 rows, will be stored in Azure Data Catalog. So what do we do with sensitive data? We don't do that. What do we do with non-sensitive data? Make your own choice. You can either include it or not. All right. Here's the first thing we can do. We register our data sources. We're going to connect and put a location and credentials. We're going to select the objects we care about within that data source, and we're going to register it. If it can, it will go pull out some metadata. It'll try and figure out. We understand SQL Server, tables, views, Oracle, Teradata, SSAS, measures and tables, tabular tables, reports, SSRS reports, yes, SSRS reports, Azure Storage, directories, HDFS out in Hadoop, Hive tables, and more. It goes on. There's a list and a link on this page. All right, when you pull down the PDF, look at the list. It evolves. We're making it every day. What this means is I can go register. It's going to ask me what's the name of the database. How do you log in? So I'm going to log in. When I do that, it's going to show me this view right here. See this published data? That's what I did. And it told me, it said, how do you want to publish that data? So I clicked on it, and I have an application I can do, or I can create a manual entry. I picked an application. The reason I picked an application is because I can reach the AdventureWorks database at my company. I work at a company that sells bicycles around the world. And I'd like to know a lot about my customers. And so I go to Joan, and Joan, the DBA, tells me, we keep the information for AdventureWorks sales in the AdventureWorks database. You have a login. I do? Yes. Here it is. So I go and log in, and it automatically pulls down, when I click Discover, the AdventureWorks database itself, but it also finds all of the tables and so on, as you can see here, inside the database. So this is the database, and here's a table, here's a table, and so on. I can filter or click on tags. We'll come to that in a moment. I'm just going to move that over for a moment. And I'm going to click on AdventureWorks Bicycles. You can see I gave it a friendly name here. I could put a description in it. Let's do that. Main database for sales. Whatever. Makes sense? From expert. So this is interesting. You can't see this in the back, but I've got some students. What I do in my data science class that I was talking about earlier is we go register data. I register the AdventureWorks database. I make them go out and find, each one of them, another data source that might be helpful. In less than 10 minutes, we have up every class. We have up to 50 new data sources that are tagged and annotated that are things I never thought about. Bicycle accidents. If somebody has a bicycle accident, you can sell them a new bicycle. Did you know that? You could sell them a safer bicycle or an orange vest. Would you have thought of that? I didn't think of that I would have this other stream. Crime data, people that get their bicycles stolen. So I came up with an idea that I was going to make some rocks that say, is your window broken? Call Buck to fix it. And you could just throw them at windows as you went by. It got shot down, but it's a revenue stream. All right, you can see I've got some properties here. I've got experts. I can add experts because remember, the most important thing is maybe I care about who's saying it, not what they're saying. So now I could have come over here to this searches, and I could have just searched on certain experts. See these experts here? I'm going to zoom in for you. Do you see the experts right there? I could have just said, I just want to see Buck's information. And if it's about the expense reports, I want Sasha. That's all I care about. I don't care who else says anything because Sasha's the one that signs that thing and I want my money, so I'm only listening to Sasha. And this is why it will work. When I have to ask Sasha more than once, she's just going to update this. And when you come in and type expense report in the search, and it's just a search like you're going to do on any web engine, right here you just type in whatever you want, and we have a full complex language that you can use, or you can just type in expense report. Then Sasha's spreadsheet would come up and she'd say, here, gosh, put it in here, fill out the following columns. Speaking of columns, as I come in here and I'm looking at the AdventureWorks bicycle, let's go to the sales order detail and notice because I told it to, I can actually get some preview of that data because I told it I'd like to. And the screen resolution here, I'm doing this so you can see it in the back, so it's not going to be as pretty as it could be. Notice I can set the results for page. Notice I can see the columns. I can add a tag. Oh, there's the sales order ID. Let's do primary key. That'd be a neat tag to have, wouldn't it? How many of you would kill for that? Okay. How about this primary key for table or whatever? That's not very helpful, is it? But I don't care. I can put anything I want to in here. I can take a look at the data profile. Because it was SQL Server, it knew how to read it. It went out and got the distinct values, the nulls, the minimums, the maximums, and so on. How many of you would like to know a table's got sparse data? I can also add documentation to it. I can put within here the entire ERD. I could take a picture of the ERD and put in here, or the join tables, or whatever, or not. If no one uses it, this isn't going to get filled out. If everybody uses it, they're going to start filling it out. Are you with me so far? Okay. You with me, camera guy? All right. So we go back to this, and notice we have this open in button. Let me zoom in for you. It will open this table in Excel, Top 1000, Excel, SQL Server Data Tools, or Power BI Desktop. How will it do that? I thought you said it didn't store any connections. It puts in here the connection information. You can see, because I put in here what it was. Here's the server name, here's the database name, the schema, and I can actually put in here how to request access. Talk with Lori. She knows the guy. Okay. And I can view the connection strings and see exactly, and again, I don't put names and passwords, but I give them everything they need to know for ODBC, OLADB, ADO.NET, and JDBC. That it pulled out all by itself by my saying, check out AdventureWorks. Security. I'm concerned. I don't want people to see what's in here. Well, don't import any data, and all they have is field names. If they can't get to it now, they can't get to it anyway. And by the way, they can open whatever tool they're using and look at the connection string and already get this. You're just making them do it. That's all. You're just making them do it. Well, what if I don't want them to see the data? Then don't register it. But I'm going to challenge you with this. Unless it's top secret data or PII and could be derived from the structure, what it is, put it in here. Just put it in. All right. We're still not done. You can see the last time it was updated. That's the freshness. I go here and I look up the expert, but she hasn't changed it in 6 years, and I know the process has changed. I'm going to go to her and say, Sasha, did you change are we still using that spreadsheet? Oh, no, I forgot to update that. Oh, I'll do it, because you can. By the way, all of you could log in right now and begin annotating this. And I do this in the class, and everybody starts discovering things and pointing to web pages that have the schema definitions. It becomes incredible. So let's do this. Let's go back to our discovery. Let's clear our searches, and let's just type in, I don't know, customer. Let's do customer. Customer. So I hit enter. I come back. I push to here. Oh, I think I'm still in the one thing. So let me just clear this. Clear all. Clear all. Search the data catalog. Customer. All right. Oh, I didn't tell it what I wanted to look at. I'll look at AdventureWorks. And you can see the results. It's taking a second to come up. You can see the results. I'm not going to wait because we're going to go in and look at this again. Boom. Do this. Do this. Come on. Here we go. Do I have customers already? I thought I did. Now we'll look at Buck. I've got a tag somewhere I've got checked. Let me change my screen resolution real quick, because I think I'm not seeing something. There we go. Oh. Okay, good. Now let's do customer. And search for, there it is. Ta-da, please get out of the way. Let me zoom back in for you. All right, so I can see that I've got customer that's been added as a tag to a SQL Server table. I've got it in addresses, on customer addresses, and in the sales order header. That quickly I could find out what SQL Server has used with the word customer in it. But if you find another table that's got customer data in it, you could tag that with customer, it would come up here. And if you were kind enough to describe it, it would come up here in that description. And if you were kind enough to say who the expert was, that would come up. And now all of those are searchable. Following so far? Okay. So this is this. Let's jump back to Slide World for a second. We've seen this. We annotate the data. Here's what you can put inside the annotations. A friendly name, a description, which is long, experts, tags, which are short, connection info, and the date stamps of when you last did it. You can extract out the columns if it understands if it's a columnar data set. You can extract those out automatically. You can extract out the tags if that system has tags like reporting services, and you can extract descriptions if it has descriptions in it. You can then put full Word documents and pictures and whatever else you'd like to on every column if you want to. You don't have to. That's the point. This will grow as you use it. All right. Got a couple more things. We're going to put one of these in. We do have search terms. Name, finance, and tags, tag 1, or tags, tag 2. You can get very, very complicated with this if you want. Yes, sir?
Is there also a functionality to rate the documents?
The question was, is there a way to give it a ranking? Like I give you 5 stars because this was super useful. That's actually in the request. I don't know if it's on the roadmap. It's a highly requested feature. However, there is a kind of version of that in that it will be, I'll show you the frequent searches. You'll see it there that this has been searched a lot of times, and so you can trust the freshness of it. But we do hear that I'd like to sort of stack rank it, or what is it, Stack Overflow? I'd like to say somebody's an expert. Yes, sir?
I was just going to say the same thing for the experts.
The same thing for the experts. Oh, for me, that's huge. I wanted to vote on the experts. Yeah, we hear that as well. And you can annotate it where allowed, and you can filter it as you saw. So you can do a search and then filter your search. This is not new to us, right? Since the company with the big G in its name, we all understand how to do searches, right? They should teach that in school. All right. There's open in. You can preview Excel and Power BI if those data sources support that. So in this case, it knew I could open that in Power BI because it's SQL Server. However, if it's a text file, it might not open well, so you don't get that open with. And again, all it's going to do is prompt you for the name and password of how you normally connect anyway. It's just going to pass in the connection strings it understands. We also have a full API access model. So you can program bulk loads in and bulk downloads, and you could write an app if you wanted to that would allow you inside your app to query the data catalog and come back to the app and maybe do something based on that. Make the connection to AdventureWorks or whatever. Now your connection string becomes dynamic in your applications. That's, for me, that's big. I'm going to come back to this, stare at this for a second. But before we do that, let's jump back over here, and I've got AdventureWorks, and I like AdventureWorks, and it's awesome, and all this good stuff. But I'm a data scientist, and I've been told we need to figure out how we can leverage demographics to help AdventureWorks sales. So let's say you're told that. Give me some things you would look up. Age, good. What, old people don't ride bicycles? Was that some kind of crack? No, I'm kidding. Old people bicycles? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, okay, watch out. Remember, old age and experience will always beat youth and skill. Okay, and what else did you say? Gender might be useful. Maybe women ride more bikes. Maybe guys ride more bikes. It all depends. Say again? I like that, health data. You know what's an interesting one is where you came from. Think about that for a minute. If I move from a state to Washington State here, we sell our bicycles here. Let's say I moved here, and let's say I want to know about the people that have moved from bike-friendly states, Arizona, Florida, other places where bicycles are common. I want to sell them one. Or maybe I don't. They might have a bike. Probably brought it with them. They like their bike. But I may want to advertise mountain bikes to them because Florida's flat. All right? So let's do this. Let's go figure out. I'm thinking the census is the best place to start. What do you think? So I go to census.gov, because you can trust the government. I click on data, and I'm presented with data main, data tools and apps, developers, mobile apps, product catalog, related sites, software, training, and workshops and visualizations. Thoughts? Anybody? Thoughts? Which one? Maybe data main? Let's go to that. There's news. Okay, that's a bust. Clearly data main is not the main thing of data. Okay, data tools, nope. Developers, nope. Product catalog? What's a product catalog? I don't know, let's go see. Okay, this looks good. This looks good. Look. Oh, this is good. Business and industry, government, certification, census, reference, training, unavailable products. Here's a list of products we don't have. Okay, all right, that's promising. You know what? Here's people and households. That sounds promising, does it not? Let's go to products, even though there's a link here on peoples and households, and there's a link here on products. I don't know, let's spin the wheel. Here we go. People and households. Now what I want to know is where people move from and to. County population estimates by age, sex, race, and Hispanic origin. No. And it's on a DVD apparently. National Survey of Homeless. Not many of the homeless in our area have bicycles. Survey of Program Dynamics. I don't even know what that means. Survey of Income and Program Participation. Current Population Survey. Sounds promising. Let's go there. Current Population Survey. All kinds of things about that. I have no idea what's going on. Then finally I see the word downloadable tabulations available free online on various subjects. Okay? And it says income, poverty, migration. We found it. Yay. See the population link. Okay? Didn't we use a population link to get here? All right, let's click on it again anyway. No, this is yet another thing. And age and sex and stress. Oh, I found it. Migration and geographic mobility. Oh, and here's some news about that. Here's some publications. No. Working papers? Data. There it is, right there. Piece of cake. How easy was that? It only took us like half of my presentation to find that. So I really want, oh my gosh, you are kidding me. You know where you get it? Let me show you. You know what it is? It's in Excel. All right, that's awesome. All right, here's what I'm gonna do. Right click, copy link. All right, so finally the data scientist has found out the migration data of who moved from where to where. Finally, and it's in an Excel spreadsheet. I told you, world's biggest database. Let's go register that, and let's see how quickly we can do that. Boom, publish data, boom. Create a new entry, boom. What's it called? Migration data. Friendly name, I like migration data 2014. Description thing. Request access on the web. Source type, SQL Server, Data Warehouse, Oracle, MySQL, Analysis Services, Hadoop, Teradata, OData, HTTP. I like it. HTTP what? File, endpoint, report, site. I'm going to call it a file. I click File. Authentication, doesn't need any authentication. URL, Bazinga. Experts, add, buck, at, Azure Data Catalog, demo, I think, .on Microsoft.com. This is fake, obviously. And tags. What do we want? Give me a tag. What's that? Hard to find. Government. Good. That's hard to find. Give me another one. Come on. Migration. Give me another one. Census. What else? How about customer? What else? 2014. Like it. What else? Bikes. What else? Demographics. Demographics. And so on. All right. Good enough. Create and register more objects, whatever. Please enter a valid email address. Sorry. Let me get rid of that. Let me just take the expert off. Okay, good. URL was here. Control. Oops. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to hurry, and I shouldn't do that. All right. All right. There we go. Create and register more objects. We're just going to leave the expert off at the moment. Oh, my gosh. Create URL. Sorry, guys. All right. Gosh, sorry, because I'm trying to go too fast here. Tags add, we'll just do customers for now. Customer. All right, create and register more objects. Okay, boom, boom, boom. And we got this. Oh, I didn't give it a name. Census. Migration. All right, there's a hard tool, by the way, not this web-based tool. I'm using the web one just because. Create and register more objects. Did you like that? It did. It liked it. Okay, so that was good. I could have created and viewed it in the portal. Let's go back here for a quick minute. What are you looking at? Some sort of mountain, something? This is actually the Caves of Qumran. Caves of Qumran, over in the Holy Land. Everybody know what it is now? There's an interesting thing that happened in the Caves of Qumran. There's a couple of goat herders that were coming through this area. There's caves all over the place. One of them fell into the cave and found a clay jar with some paper in it. So he picked it up, because there's a lot of antiquities over there, and put it on his donkey, and they went, a camel, excuse me, they went back no, he had a camel, seriously, and him and his brother, his cousin, sorry, went back to their camp, and eventually they ended up in, no kidding, Bethlehem, and tried to sell it at one of the markets there. They thought it was stolen, told them this is probably stolen, we don't want to see it. And so they carried them around some more, finally sold it to someone for $25 a jar. When they found that out, they began to tear the papers up to sell them individually for $25. As late as decades later, you could buy them in the Wall Street Journal as a gift if you wanted to, these cool antiquities. Until the Palestinian government began to find out that these things were out there. And they began to analyze them. And they found out they had a form of Greek and Hebrew and other languages that described things that had never been put together before. These are the Dead Sea Scrolls. And they're priceless. You can't buy them. No one will sell them to you. They are beyond value. Now let me ask you a question. Did the Dead Sea Scrolls change at all between the time when the cousins found them in the cave and now? Not one bit. What changed? What we knew about the scrolls made them priceless. It's the metadata. It's the cataloging. Let's finish up with this. Now when we come back, we get more data, including the migration data that we just put in. And we can now begin to annotate it and tag it, and we can begin to describe it. And it comes up, when you're looking for customer, you didn't have to spend 38 minutes finding something on a different site that's incorrect. Or maybe you find a better one, and we trust Lori better than we trust Buck. And we use Lori's, and Buck's just doesn't get used. What do I do with that? Don't do anything with it. Or delete it. There is a delete button if you want. You can do that. Again, when I show this in the data science, in the context of the data science class, we get 50 sources in 10 minutes. And you're like, yeah, but how useful are they? Who cares? Let people go at the data. Let people find the data. Let people annotate the data. Let people assign experts to the data. Then allow everyone else to go at the data. Are you the next speaker? We'll be done in a second. Well, you can come in too if you want. We're closing out here. We don't have much time to go over several questions, but a lot of this stuff is in the links. I definitely want you to try this out. There's a session on how to do that in the links of this document. How many of you think you're more interested in looking at a data catalog that's simpler like this, as opposed to something that's brittle and tied to us? By the way, this doesn't have to be tied to anything. Web, ODBC, I don't care where you're putting it. Microsoft does not care where your data is. We just care that you use this to make sure you democratize its metadata. Any questions on this before we go? All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. Fill out your evals. Appreciate your time.